Hi, I'm Linda from traumamentor.com, and for this latest video I want to talk about role models and how that is actually or can be a really big part of your healing journey for complex post-traumatic stress disorder. So when I was healing and working with the lady that I call a trauma mentor, she didn't call herself that. When I was doing that, she introduced me to a support group, which I went to for 3 years. And I, I recommend, if you can find a safe, secure, loving support group that that you feel comfortable in. That's important. That you do use a support group, because it's not so much that what you learn there is going to help you with your healing, not necessarily, because I actually found the support group to be fairly triggering. I used to have dissociative episodes sometimes when they were talking about things. So, so that aspect of it is bad. It can dysregulate you because of that. But some support groups are realizing this and are getting better at not doing that sort of work. So not doing as much talking, and it forms more of a support structure, and rather than just talking about traumatic events, which is going to trigger a lot of the people. So but I mention that because at this support group I met some ladies who had been on the healing journey for a lot longer than I had been at that point. And they had reached the point where they were no longer getting triggered. They were no longer having difficulty with controlling their emotions, and difficulty with feeling angry and distrustful towards the world, and feeling empty and hopeless, and all of the things that that we struggle with. You can find the full list of everything I'm listing here on the homepage. So what I'm getting at is these two ladies were like a beacon of what is possible. I really looked up to them. They were older than me. They looked like they had figured it out. They looked like hope, and that was incredibly encouraging on my healing journey. And I think that if you don't have that sort of vision of what is possible, the healing journey can sometimes be disheartening because it's tough sometimes. So I just want to go through some other well-recognized figures in the world, that you can access YouTube videos of, and things like that, that you can also use as sort of beacons of hope, and role models for your healing journey. So Oprah comes from a very dysfunctional and abusive childhood, and she's very open about speaking about it. So I even back then, I have always considered Oprah to be one of my role models. Some people just concentrate on the fact that Oprah has made a lot of money and been very successful in her career, but that's not at all what I used to focus on. The thing that I would focus on is her stories that she would so freely share with the world about her healing and about the trauma experiences that she's learned from, and what she calls these days post-traumatic wisdom. And I really, if you like Oprah, watch a lot of her videos that speak about these things, because it's a hopeful sort of beacon that you can see, and don't think of her as this powerful, very rich lady. Think of her as a human being who has managed to get past complex post-traumatic stress disorder. Another one that's also has a lot of resources, videos, and also speaks openly about this is Joyce Meyer. She's, of course, a Christian preacher. So there's a lot of Christian, she's just Christian, and speaks a lot about Jesus and about God and about what Jesus wants to do for you, which is also awesome if you're willing to listen to that. She was always like this, it was almost as if I didn't want to hear about religion and about God and about, people who didn't seem to be experiencing what I was experiencing when I was healing. I always thought, they speak about God as if he's just like awesome all the time. And I happen to know that he let some really bad things happen to me. So, yes, he is awesome, but it's not black and white. He does let bad things happen, and that's not awesome. There's nothing awesome about that. And so I sort of trusted Joyce Meyer, and the Bible that I used when I was going through my healing journey was one of, like, she has these Bibles that she has a lot of the study notes and, like commentary and things like that throughout the Bible that she's put together. I had an amplified version with all of these study notes from her. And I found it that was the only like religious text type of thing that I could read when I was healing, because when she wrote it, I was like, okay, if she can write this, I can believe it. If she can say, you can trust God, you can trust what he's saying here, or her commentary on the verses, it made me sort of able to read the stuff, because it was like she actually knows what she's talking about. She's gone through hell herself. She gets this. So if she is saying this, I'll listen. And now that I've healed, even now, I still tend to really appreciate what I hear from Oprah, from Joyce Meyer. But now I've added a few other ones that I'd like to suggest that you also take a look at. And that whining noise, if you can hear it, is my doggy. My doggy has just decided that it's time to go outside. So I'd also like to recommend Dr. Edith Iger. She's written a lot of books. She also has a lot of, there's also a lot of her talks and stuff like that. She's an incredibly old lady. She is still alive at this point while I'm making this video, but she was at Auschwitz, and she was, she had to witness, people getting murdered and killed in front of her when she was a teenager. So she has a that whole crazy reference to extreme trauma in that way, and some absolutely horrific stories. I've read her book The Choice, which is brilliant. She's also written another one. It's very sad, but it's also very hopeful. So I like listening to her, because I also feel like she gets it. She understands trauma. She understands. Now, when she did survive the whole experience, and when you read about how she survived it, it's incredible, because I'm not going to explain it. You can go and look at it if you'd like to. She describes it in detail in many of her talks that you can access on YouTube. But she became a fairly world-renowned psychiatrist, or psychologist. I actually don't know if it's a psychiatrist or psychologist. She's called doctor, so it's probably psychiatrist. But anyway, and she now, even in her old age, she's in her 90s already, she shares so much about how she knows what it's like to live through hell. She knows what it's like helping her clients who've lived through hell. And she has so much of that same post-traumatic wisdom that Oprah speaks about, that she also speaks about. So I find her incredibly encouraging, incredibly, she's definitely one of my role models at this point in my life. Another one, a much lighter one, is the latest Kate. It's an artist that does the most stunning artwork, posts a lot on social media, on Instagram and Facebook, and it's incredibly uplifting, incredibly uplifting. I don't know all of her story because she doesn't share it in as much detail, or at least I haven't come across the full extent of what she shares, but she's struggled a lot with depression and things like that. So again, when she shares this inspiration and this encouragement, she always has a little text with all of her paintings or all of her artwork. It's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. So I highly recommend that as well. And then, of course, a huge one is Anna Runkle. She goes, her YouTube channel is called The Crappy Childhood Fairy. And she has also healed from complex post-traumatic stress disorder. And she shares literally hundreds of videos on her YouTube channel to help other people to get past their complex post-traumatic stress disorder. And I have an enormous amount of respect for her. I think she's absolutely brilliant. And she talks about, I mean, if you think of a topic to do with complex post-traumatic stress disorder, you can probably find a video that she's made about it. So I highly recommend her. So there's some role models. I encourage you to use role models in your healing journey. And as always, I wish you healing.